Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Milana and I make book videos on here, but I'm also a photographer and I have a background in filmmaking, which I do want to add to this channel at some point, some sort of content revolving around that. However, let's talk about books, and specifically, let's talk about the mid-year book freakout tag. I've always wanted to do this, but I've never really read enough to be able to answer all the questions in the list, and I think I might have taken one out this year. I'm not sure, but I think perhaps. Tell me if I missed a question. I'm very excited to get into it and reflect on the year, what I've read so far. I will also be doing a stats video, and that video will also cover my 10 favorite books of the year so far. But in this video specifically, we will be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I'm sure you guys have seen these on YouTube, but it's a set of questions that someone came up with. I'm not sure who started it because it's been going on for quite some time, but yeah, I'm very excited to get started. First question is, best book you've read so far in 2024? And this is a tough one for me because this is the best reading year I've had so far, like ever. I think it's because I truly nailed my taste in books. So I've been picking books that I know are possibly 5-star reads for me. Based on my stats, I have 9 5-star reads. And let me tell you folks, that has never happened to me before. I don't get a lot of 5-star reads. I am being more lenient with my ratings this year. However, like, these books are exceptional. So I had to pick 3. I couldn't just pick one. Okay? So bear with me. We have, and in no particular order whatsoever, Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhawa. It was the first book I finished this year. And what a start. We read this in my book club that I host over on Fable, and it was generally a very well-loved book and absolutely devastating. Yes, this was just an absolutely phenomenal read. It's one of those books where, when you read a book and cannot get the characters from that book out of your heart and soul, like it feels like embedded into your core after you read it. This was one of those books, and if you've read this book, you know exactly what I mean because it's unanimously a loved book. If you look at the ratings online, they're very, very high, and for good reason because it's absolutely beautiful and devastating and very well written. But yeah, please read the trigger warnings for this book, even though it is very, very important of a read, and it's a privilege to even be able to learn about a lot of the traumas and the devastating things people go through as a refugee in countries of conflict. It's very difficult to read. Just a warning. Because I know some of the people in the book club did have a difficult time reading it. However, everyone unanimously felt that it was an extremely, extremely important read, very educational, and yeah, just spectacular read. I do want to read more from Susan Abulhawa. Then we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I already filmed a video on this book, reading it, and my experience reading it, and I've done a wrap-up on it, so you guys know how I feel already. If you don't, please check out those videos. But this book is so freaking phenomenal, and it was an anticipated 5-star read, and it hit the 5 stars for me. It was so good, so chilling, so beautifully written. It's one of those books, like, if you want to read something that's just like no plot, no questions answered, really just an experience, then this is definitely a book for you. It's very philosophical. It covers so many different themes, and I have not read a book like it ever. And I'm hoping I can read many, many, many more books like it. It's dystopian, it's speculative, It's very literary, so if any of that sounds like it's up your alley, you might enjoy this book. I highly recommend it, and so does the rest of the internet. If you've seen this book mentioned before, you know people love it, and yeah, phenomenal read. And then the last book in my best books I've read so far list is Homegoing by Ya Gacy, a generational family saga, historical fiction. If you don't really know what it's about, very quickly mention it, but you're following two sisters that don't know their siblings. They're growing up in different villages due to whatever circumstances. If you read the book, you'll know. And growing up in Africa on the coast, and one of them ends up getting sold to the slave trade when the English come into that part of Africa. And so one of them gets sold to the slave trade and the other one stays in Africa, and you follow generations of each side of their lineages, and you also follow the ways that the slave trade has affected them, whether or not they stayed in Africa or sold to slavery in the US and into the US. Even though there's so many characters introduced in this, you still felt very connected to each character that you read from, and you got to know like a decent chunk of their story. I feel like there's other books that are intergenerational like this that feel less intimate. However, this book felt very, very intimate. And by the end of the book and the modern day generation that you end up reading from, you really, really see everything come into play into these people's present day. All of their generational history, generational trauma, and how that created the situations that they're in present day, and how they feel, and just an absolutely spectacular read. I would highly, 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 highly recommend this. So beautiful. The next question is best sequel of 2024 so far. And this was difficult to answer because I did not read any sequels to any series this year. I don't read a lot of series. I read a lot of standalone books. However, there's one that I started, so I'm just going to include it just to feel included in this question. Dune Messiah. And I am 43 pages into this book, so not very far into it. But yeah, honorable mention to Dune Messiah. I was enjoying it. I just forgot about it. The next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. And just so you guys know, I'm on a book buying ban. Like a very strict book buying ban. Unless other people are gifting me books, I am not buying any books, okay? And so it's been really, really hard to restrain myself from buying books because there's quite a few that have come out already this year that I want to read so badly. And I only added 3 in here because we're going to be here for too long if I go over all of them, okay? Starting off, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. Of course, I want to read all of Emily Henry's books. The only ones I haven't read were Beach Read and Funny Story. I heard that the main love interest is compared to Nick Miller from New Girl, and I'm actually coincidentally rewatching New Girl right now for the 3rd time because I love that show so much. So I'm so down to read that. Hopefully someone gifts that to me. I mean, my birthday is coming up in July, so hint, hint to all my friends and family. Then we have Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. And I read Cleopatra and Frankenstein earlier this year, and I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, I heard very, very good things about Blue Sisters, and I feel like I might like that book more, even more than Cleopatra and Frankenstein, so I'm very excited. Another great one that I want to get to. And lastly, The one that I think I'm most excited for is Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. I love their book so much. Okay, I'm a big fangirl. I want to read all of them, and I'm just so impressed by their work. They span so many different genres and just have the most beautiful writing, and everything that they do is impressive. So yeah, I really want to read Little Rot. It sounds really fun too. Like, I read the premise and I was like, that sounds exciting, and I'm ready for that kind of read. So yes, Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi, very anticipated. Question number 4 is most anticipated release of the second half of 2024. And I only put one on here because there is one that is just, I think you all know what it is, that just trumps any sort of other book that could be coming out this second half of the year, and that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Obviously, I want to read this. I think it comes out, what is it, September or something like that? Yeah, so all of you who got PR, got an early copy and arc of Intermezzo, I am so jealous of you, and all of you that are reading it right now this summer. Oh my god. And the book sounds phenomenal. Everyone that's reviewed it so far has said it's very different from all of her other books, and it sounds a lot more literary, a lot more sad. I don't know. I could be wrong. It sounds pretty fucking sad. So I am curious to read that. I love a good sad book. So, and I love Sally Rooney. And yeah, that's pretty much my answer to that question. Question number 5 is biggest disappointment. Okay, so this might be a controversial take. I had a few disappointments this year, but I just wanted to pick one. But yeah, I'm just gonna come clean. I know this is a very beloved, you know, morally gray, hot girl book, but I did not enjoy it. And that is Boy Parts by Liza Clark. This was a pick in our book club as well, and I wasn't the only one that felt this way. I was surprised to be polarized by this book because I love to read morally gray characters. I love just getting lost in their fucked up sauce, and I just didn't enjoy this. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It just really fell flat for me. I wouldn't recommend it. Like, it wasn't completely boring. It was still entertaining, but considering how many other books in this kind of genre there are, I don't think I would recommend this. It's not my favorite. But I've heard great things about other books by Liza Clark, so I might read something else by her and see if I like that more. But yeah, Boy Parts was just okay. It was just okay, guys. I didn't hate it that much, but it was a disappointment because I was expecting more, you know? Number 6 is biggest surprise, and that was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi, and this is a polarizing book on here. Not just on here, on the internet in general. People either love it or they hate it, and I loved it. And I loved it even more because the first book that I read, or the only other book that I read by Akwaeke Emezi, was Fresh Water, which is very lyrical. It's very beautifully written. There's a lot of depth to it, and there's a lot I feel like I had to learn along the way, and was just on Google all the time trying to understand different things that I wasn't exposed to before I read the book. So it was a challenging read, but it was absolutely beautiful, and I was mesmerized by it. So I was fully expecting this book to be the same. And I had no idea that they wrote in many different genres. So when I started the book and realized this is a literary romance, I was like, huh? With morally gray characters? Like, huh? And even better was that it came at a time where this was exactly what I wanted to read, and I did not expect it coming, and I just enjoyed it so much. It was hot, it was fun, and there was also depth to it. There was a conversation on several conversations on grief throughout the story. However, it was a completely different book in different genre altogether, but it still felt like Akwaeke Emezi wrote it. And so, yeah, just once again, so impressed by their writing. And yeah, it was the best surprise ever. And I would recommend it personally because I enjoyed it. However, you might not. Mainly because, and what I've seen from most reviews is that people cannot get down with the characters, and I really could get down with the characters because they were just a mess, and I loved it. It was so fun. So if you go into it knowing that, I think it makes it more enjoyable. Number 7 is favorite new authors or authors that are new to you. Starting with the list, we have Claire Keegan. Wow. Claire Keegan, okay, Claire Keegan. Irish Queen, Claire Keegan, made me fall in love with short books. And I've always been a thick book girly, like 300 page plus. Give me like a long book with so much depth that I become sucked into that world and I like never want it to end. However, I didn't know people can do this with short books. I didn't know short books can have this much impact. And Claire Keegan's writing is a masterclass. If you have never read from her, you need to read from her. I read 2 books by her this year. I will be reading everything she ever writes. I will read her grocery list. Anything, really. I feel like her books are so masterfully written that every single word, every sentence is so well crafted. Yeah, I will be reading everything she's ever written. And speaking of that, the other author that is a new favorite is Octavia E. Butler. I read Kindred by her this year, and I knew it was good, but I didn't know how good it would be. It was so good that I had to tell everyone around me what was happening in this book the entire time. And I was in my hometown at this point when I was reading it. And so I was giving my parents updates like every single morning. And they were asking for the updates. Like they wanted to know what happened. This is how good this story is. Like I loved it, and I want a movie. I want a really good movie. Okay, or a series, you know, it could be a good series. It needs an adaptation. It needs an adaptation. It is so good. It was so entertaining. It's a page turner type of book, and I would highly recommend it. And then lastly, we have James Baldwin, which that's not a surprise to anyone, I think. Yeah, I read Giovanni's Room, and I plan to read more and more and more books, just really his whole catalog of books. And yeah, just a masterful writer, beautiful writing. All 3 of these are just masters at what they do, truly, and in their own ways too. They all have very different writing styles than each other. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crush. This was hard for me to think of because I don't read a lot of like romance or books with like endearing characters that often. I read a lot of like sad books and like books that are very introspective, so I'm not really like crushing on anyone while I'm reading them. However, I did read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, so Charlie Lastra has to be the character because I just loved him. I loved him. He's my favorite love interest in Emily Henry's books so far. I don't think I've ever had a fictional crush. I guess I could say he's a fictional crush, but like, I don't know to what extreme, you know? Like, I'm not thinking about him now. Maybe I am as I'm speaking about him, but like, yeah, if you have like a very serious fictional crush from a book, please let me know what it is down below, because I want to read that and I want to know why. Like, maybe it's time for me to have a serious fictional crush. I don't know. It's possible. Number 9, we have newest fave character, and for this I picked Demon from Demon Copperhead, and I just loved reading Demon's story, his coming of age story, and I was really sucked into his perseverance and his humor and just his growth as an overall human throughout the story. Another book that I would highly recommend. I'm pretty sure I gave that as well a 5 out of 5 star. Number 10 is A Book That Made You Cry. And I picked 2 for this, but I'm sure I cried for more of them. I'm a crier, so I just can't remember which ones I cried during. I'm sure most of them. Any of them that are sad. But there are 2 in specific that I fucking bawled my eyes out, okay? I bawled my eyes out. And the first one is, if you've read it, you already know, Against the Loveless World by Susan Appel Hawa, which was one of my favorite books of the year. And it also was the most devastating book that I read all year. And it made me cry many times. Not once, not twice, but many. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I cried during this book. It was a very difficult read. Then we have On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This also made me cry several times, especially when it came to different family things and interactions, and just the end too. Oh my god, did I cry towards the end of the book. Actually, so many moments in the book. I don't know what I'm saying. Like, this book was also extremely devastating in many, many moments of the book. And so raw. This is another book I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I originally gave it 4.75 because I was being a hard ass for no reason. And I went back, and because I literally have not stopped thinking about it since I read it, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, because what was I doing not giving it a 5? Like, anyway, made me bawl my eyes out several times. So those 2 get that nomination. Question 11 is A Book That Made You Happy. And it looks like I picked 3 here. Yep, I picked 3. Actually, there's 4. There's 4, and I think I paired 2 of them up together because they're in the same kind of genre. So first we have Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen. I love Emily Austen. I love her writing. I follow her on TikTok, and I'm just a big fangirl. I will read anything she writes, and her books just make me happy. Her characters are so awkward, neurospicy, and weird, and so many weird things happen to them, and I love that. I just have such a good time when I read her books, regardless of like any sort of trigger warnings that might be involved in them. She does such a good job at like handling serious things with also lots of humor throughout, and yeah, it just made me happy. And then we have one that I wasn't expecting. I kind of just read this on a whim. I borrowed it when I still had my library subscription, and that was Lucky Red by Claudia Cravens. I saw this book mentioned a long time ago, and I cannot tell you who recommended it because I haven't really seen it circulate much. It's a queer western, and I loved this. I loved it so much. I would read it again. Genuinely, I would read it again. It was such a fun time. It was very feminist. It was also like a bit of a parody on like spaghetti western type of things, and it was just such a good time. I had such a good time reading it, and I would highly recommend it if you are in a reading slump, if you want something fun. It's a great Pride Month read too. I need to get a physical copy of it because it's definitely one I want to have in my personal collection. And lastly, I put these two together. I read them at a similar time, but in general, books that really, really make me happy a lot of the time are cute Japanese translated fictions. That is like an area, a genre of books that instantly and guarantee to make me happy. It doesn't even matter whether or not it's translated well, whether the writing is good. Like, they're so wholesome, so damn wholesome. And the two that I read this year that really stood out to me was She and Her Cat and Days at the Morizaki Bookshop. These are so great if you're having a reading slump or if you just need to be cheered up. Like, I was going through, and I'm going through a really, really difficult time this year, and these books were like a beacon of light for me. Even though both of them do have some serious aspects to them, I love these books. I love them, I love them, I love them. And I will continue to read more Japanese translated fiction that's in this realm. If you read when the coffee gets cold, is that what guys, I own this book, I swear. I just can never get the title right. Before the Coffee Gets Cold. If you've read that, that's a very popular one. If you've read that, then you would love either of these. Like, they're both, it's like cozy translated Japanese fiction. I think that's like what I would say it is. I'm glad that I have pushed myself to read more cozy books, more books with humor in them, and things that can kind of balance out a lot of the other heavier reads that I've been reading. And I think because of that, my frequency in reading has also like gone up because I have a lot more balance in my reading. If I was only reading those heavy hitter books, I genuinely would not be reading at the same frequency. Like, I would have to take breaks in between books for like longer periods of time. These books really, really made me happy this year. Question number 12 was most beautiful book you bought / received this year. And there was one that I received this year that I am obsessed with the cover, and I'm so glad that I own it. I wanted to read it earlier this year, but I didn't get to it, and I think in the fall time it's going to be the perfect time for me to read this, and I will grab it one moment. And that is The Master and the Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov? Bulgakov? Mikhail Bulgakov? Y'all, I don't know how to say this name. Oh, the Russians. But yeah, this cover is just, look at this thing. And the back too. The artwork is just stunning. And then we've got like in the sleeves as well. And I know there's magical realism in this. And so the cover just, I feel like suits that so well. It's very textured as well, and it's got this kind of style of paper. Alright, the last question is books I need to read by the end of the year. And that really is just my 24 and 2024 list. Those books are the most important books that I want to get through this year. I'll put the list up here. And yeah, I'm not making enough of a dent in this, and that's really my goal for the rest of the year, is to get through those books. We have come to the end of the video. I'm so thankful that anyone is even watching this, whether or not like you know me personally or you're new here and you're voluntarily watching this. Thank you. I can't believe that you're doing that. Thanks. But anyway, here's to a fruitful second half of the year, and I hope you guys have a great time reading. I hope you guys reach your reading goals. I know I will be reaching my reading goal because I am so close to it already that I'm not really worried about that. That's not even a thing for me right now, which is incredible. I've never read at this frequency in my life, and I'm so thankful, and I'm so glad to be making content on here. And I'm gonna stop. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and happy reading, guys. If you want to support me, also there's like links down below, and I always add a charity to my video description, so check that out as well. And thanks for watching. Bye.